Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The Broadband Technology Opportunities Program, or BTOP, came about as a result of the Stimulus Act. Then 2012, a Tax Relief Act came along, and now we have FirstNet. Mississippi was one of the grantees under BTOP and moved forward very aggressively with greater speed than any other recipient. And the department and our delegation have had numerous discussions about our disappointment with how this has turned out. I understand FirstNet maintains it could not reach a spectrum lease agreement with the state of Mississippi. This was unfortunate because as tens of millions of state and federal tax dollars had been spent, significant physical assets deployed, and the system weeks away from going live, Mississippi would have provided an early demonstration of the great potential broadband holds for first responders. I assume you're aware that the entire Mississippi delegation met with Assistant Secretary Strickling in 2013 to impress on him how important restarting the original BTOP project was to all of us. At that point, I personally tried to help FirstNet, NTIA, and the state of Mississippi reach an agreement. Assistant Secretary Strickling then pledged to work with us to find a way forward, and of course, this has not come to fruition. NTIA has justified the suspension of Mississippi's grant as saving taxpayers money by, quote, avoiding investments that might have to be replaced if they are incompatible with the ultimate nationwide architecture of the new public safety broadband network, unquote. However, one of the fundamental conditions imposed on all 700 megahertz public safety broadband waivers is the commitment of the waiver recipients to design, develop, and deploy a network that is fully interoperable. So that argument does not seem to hold water. Furthermore, Mississippi's contract with its vendors required complete compliance with, quote, all rules, specifications, and functionalities, unquote. That may change per the FCC or NTIA during the build-out of the nationwide network. Understandably, we in Mississippi are disappointed and upset. Given these assurances by the state of Mississippi and the vendors, how exactly is NTIA saving taxpayer money, especially when, in fact, the agency is now telling Mississippi to spend money to dismantle the LTE equipment already deployed?
Well, Senator, so as you know, there were originally 7 pilot projects looked at. 4 of them were approved, 3 of them were not approved, including the $70 million Mississippi grant. And, you know, we were deeply disappointed as well because we wanted to try to make this work. But at the end of the day, the state and NTIA couldn't agree on terms because the state's plan didn't provide the necessary level of detail we needed to meet the statutory requirements of the Act. And as you know, under the BTOP program, there were specific statutory requirements that this had to meet. And the Mississippi plan that came forward wasn't a viable alternative that met the statutory requirements. One of the things that NTIA is committed to doing is
statutory requirements from 2012 or from the Economic Stimulus Act?
I believe from the from the original BTOP program. And one of the things that's my understanding is the Mississippi program didn't provide broadband coverage, and so that was one of the challenges of this. But look, we wanted to try to make this work. The FirstNet team worked very hard and long hours with Mississippi trying to find a way to make it work. 3 of the projects were not in the end, though, able to go forward because they, for one reason or another, including this one. We are working, NTIA is working with the state of Mississippi to dispose of the equipment. Mississippi, the medical communications equipment held by the hospitals and the ambulances will be retained in Mississippi, so we're trying to keep as much of that value. But NTIA is committed to helping to dispose of the excess equipment, frankly, to avoid a loss to the taxpayers.
Mr. Secretary, we were weeks away from deployment. Mississippi was a leader in deploying a network for first responders based on the statute that was enacted in 2009 when the federal government made the decision to dismantle the original BTOP project, forcing the state to start over. Mississippi has already accomplished the goals of NTIA's implementation program, which is why the state turned down the offered SLIGP grant. Mississippi today has a mature governance structure for the network that was created in 2005. The state was only weeks away from turning on its broadband network when the BTOP grant was suspended by NTIA. I hope that your offer to continue working with the state comes to fruition. Ms. Swinson was invited over a year ago to come to Mississippi. For whatever reason, that meeting has not taken place yet. But I can tell you that we in Mississippi, our entire delegation, Democrat and Republican, are very concerned about this, very disappointed at the wasting of federal money from the economic stimulus program. And we are particularly disappointed that MedCom is not able to go forward, a project that has received essential equipment and would allow first responders to transmit life-saving data to provide hospitals which support vital medical services to proceed on. My time has expired, but I hope this hearing will result in some purposeful action on the part of the department and FirstNet to make things work in Mississippi.